और अरुण जेटली इस वक्त प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस कर रहे हैं, आइए चलते हैं।
That instead of one person, you now have a monetary policy committee. So a far more broad-based body with a statutory backing, which now decides various decisions relevant to the monetary policy. A big departure from the past. We for decades spoken in terms of rationalizing subsidies and therefore giving it the statutory support under the Aadhaar legislation which was passed earlier this year. We now find that in various areas we are being able to check leakages, we are being able to target subsidies in the direction in which they were meant. And this has indeed helped us to change even the course of discussion. If you recollect the 2014 elections, what was the content of the discussion? Whether it should be 9 subsidized cylinders for everyone, including the wealthy, or it should be 12. That was the thought process. And suddenly you have only the more deserving who are entitled to it. The very poor are entitled to more subsidized, if not free, in the first instance. And those who can afford it will give it up. And therefore, in a true sense, this rationalization of subsidies, whether it's petroleum products or it's gas, and then pilot projects with regard to fertilizer, food, in all these areas we made a significant beginning, and it's led to a large amount of savings. The passage of the insolvency and the bankruptcy law and the establishment of the institutions necessary for enforcing it, I think was another important development of this year. By far one of the most important developments was the passage of the Constitution Amendment for the Goods and Services Tax. I'll refer to the present position just a moment later. And then, of course, the government took a somewhat courageous step in the direction of the high denominational currency ceasing to be a legally valid tender and went in for a large currency swap or an exchange. Now, the fact that India today has the capacity to take these decisions and a capacity to enforce these decisions, to experiment boldly, even when at the time when the world is looking more inwards, I think marks an exception as far as India is concerned. Having passed the Constitution Amendment, there are several decisions which the GST Council now has to take, and these are of very vital interest to India's industry. There are about 10 important decisions which have already been taken, all unanimously by consensus. The legislations which have to be passed by Parliament under the Constitution Amendment and the state legislatures are currently in the process of being drafted. I don't see any major difficulty in those legislations being finally approved. there is only one issue which in the larger frame of things is really a very small issue. Because when three major taxes and some minor taxes are all merged into one, the VAT, the excise, the service tax and a host of state taxes, then each assessee is going to be assessed only once. So you have already a pre-existing machinery at the center, you have a pre-existing machinery in the states. How is the burden of this assessment going to be shared between the center and the states? How do we cross-empower both the agencies of the center and the state when both these parallel setups exist? Though ideally with a common taxation, it has to lead to a federal bureaucracy.
तो वित्त मंत्री अरुण जेटली फिक्की के कार्यक्रम में बता रहे थे कि किस तरह से अर्थव्यवस्था में तेजी से बदलाव आया है और नोटबंदी से जुड़ी भी कई बातें वो बता रहे थे। रुकेंगे एक छोटे से ब्रेक के लिए, बने रहे हमारे साथ, देखते रहिए आज तक।